Hi and welcome. For our next session, we have a panel discussion where we're going to discuss local expertise and a strong national brand at the same time. Lucky me that I have 4 experts to discuss this with, because I really need that today. Welcome, the panel. Hi, guys. How are you today?
Very good.
Very good, thank you.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves a little bit so we get a feel for who you are and also where you're calling in from. So let's start with Neill.
Okay, hi there. So as you say, my name is Nick and I'm the managing director of a company called Ewemove in the UK, which is a national franchised agency brand. We're based in the north of England, myself in York, which is about 2 hours north of London. And we've grown our business from 2014 from a brand new startup to now having about 170 franchised agencies all across the UK with an aspiration to grow to 400. So we've still got lots more work to do ahead of us.
Oh, amazing. And what about Nick Moir? Is that right? No?
That's absolutely perfect. Hi, I'm Nick. I've been working for a company called Andrews for 15 years. Andrews is a 56 branch office business across the south of the UK and has been running since 1946. And I look after their marketing, the digital experience and contact centre.
Okay, perfect. So loving that we have 2 Nick from UK. And then we have Leanne. Welcome to the studio.
Hey, thanks for having me. So I'm Leanne Pilkington. I am the CEO of Laing+Simmons, which is a franchise organisation based here in Sydney, Australia. I've been with the brand for 26 years and earlier this year organised a buyout. So I'm now one of the owners of the brand, and I'm also the current president of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales.
And Douglas, also from Australia.
Yes, well, I reside in Australia, but originally from the UK. So I'm not sure which side of the fence I'm going to sit on this debate. But my name's Doug Driscoll. I'm the CEO and owner of Starr Partners. Like Leanne, we're based in Sydney, and we have 30 offices across New South Wales.
Okay. So you're all very welcome. The topic of today is marrying the importance of local expertise with a strong national brand. And I really hope you can help me shine some light on that. So can we start with Neill? Do you think that a local expertise and a strong national brand complement each other, and why?
Well, they absolutely do, and certainly in real estate. So, for example, people who are choosing an estate agent firstly need to trust the brand that they're dealing with. So the bigger the brand and the more well-known that brand is, then arguably the more trust and confidence they have in that brand. But that comes to nothing really if the individual agent who goes to sit on their sofa in the front room of their house to talk to them about selling their house doesn't also inspire confidence, and those individuals need to know information about the local schools and where the kids' park is, sports facilities, all of that micro local information that somebody needs to have, again, so they as an individual can also inspire confidence in that potential vendor or seller. So the brand has a big job of work to do to really get those agents through the door of a home. But when the agent is through the door of a home, it's very much down to that individual to bring to the party and the conversation the hyper-local information that they need to enable them to do the job that the vendor wants them to do, which is to sell the house in the right sort of time frame at the best price they can.
Do you think that there could be a risk for a national brand to invest too much in local expertise and presence?
No, I don't think so. I think certainly in the UK, property selling is very much about people moving within local towns. There is, people will move with job mobility out of cities to other locations and vice versa. But the majority of moves are relatively local. So having the individual operate in a kind of micro territory is really quite important. And that makes their business more effective because they come known as the expert in that local area.
But Nick, it's also really important when you're seeing people move, because certainly COVID times, right, we're seeing globally people moving out of cities into regional areas. And moving from, for example, Sydney to the north coast of New South Wales, being able to move and still know the brand that you're dealing with up in the different areas, I think is a really important thing for people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the national brand plays to the strength of being more widely known right across the country. So definitely so.
Douglas, you're managing 30 offices. How do you handle the tension between the local office and a national brand in digital space?
I certainly think from a digital sense, I mean, obviously that's ubiquitous, right? So I don't think that digital has any sort of geographical boundaries at all, quite frankly. But in regards to, our network, all the offices are within quite close proximity of each other. So obviously what we need to do is promote referrals and word of mouth referrals amongst the offices themselves. I think, and that's key and critical, because otherwise what are the genuine benefits other than just a name above the door of having or being part of a large brand? So I think, the harmonious relationship between those offices, and the advantage being that obviously you can get more buyers exposed to your property, I think is key. And part of that obviously is the digital strategy as well, of course.
But has the digital development changed kind of this work and made it easier or even more difficult to handle the local versus the national brand?
I don't think it makes any difference, to be honest. Obviously, an estate agent's role fundamentally at the very core remains the same. And I certainly think that the digital space has certainly enhanced and helped what we've done in most instances. But in regards to, the local national debate, I don't think it has a great deal of influence or sway, quite frankly.
I think going back I think going back to Nick's point about trust earlier, it's very easy to target locally now in a digital sense, but in order to maintain that trust, it has to be authentic. So you can't just put out local ads for the sake of it. They have to represent that local community, the local properties and the local people and the local lifestyles. Otherwise, your digital advertising might be localized by geography, but it becomes inauthentic and it breaks down that trust.
And I think actually just on that point, that is a good point, because I think as an industry, what we're doing is we're trying to concentrate on how to do social opposed to how to be social. So I think you're right. Being immersed in your local community is absolutely critical. And I think some agencies perhaps are now overly reliant on the digital space, whereas they need to get back boots on the ground and actually immerse themselves in the community and actually help out and be seen and be known. I mean, that's part and parcel, isn't it?
So,
yeah.
Leanne,
are you finding though that the reliance on the digital space has kind of reduced borders, so people are selling property and listing property much further away from their office than they were, maybe 5 years ago?
Well, yes, we are. We're certainly seeing that in Sydney, aren't we, Leanne? But I guess part of the problem there, and again, part of the advantages of being a part of a bigger organisation, a national brand, is the ability to have someone that you can rely on to refer that business to. And I'm sure you're the same as us, Leanne, and I'm sure both Nick's are the same in their marketplaces. I think it's actually better to refer the business to the local expert being the key word there, because in an upward market with a tailwind, anyone can sell anything anywhere, but can they get the best result? And I think, as I said, the local expert is most likely to get the best result. And if you've got someone you can refer that business to that's part of the same brand, then why wouldn't you do it? Why would you try to be selling something 10, 15 kilometres away? It makes no sense to me. So I think that's the advantage of having a network, the fact that you can refer with a great deal of confidence.
Yeah, and we operate on the basis of very, very tight and defined boundaries and territories, which are quite small in actual fact. So we don't want people selling miles and miles outside of their territory, because one of the things we do as part of our proposition is we actually go and host all of those viewings. So, of course, you can't be doing that if you've got a large geography to travel. So handing it over to somebody local within the network certainly makes sense. But if we go back to the digital thing about does digital make any difference to selling a property and engaging with a buyer? And I think it absolutely does, because if you go back to pre-internet days, the job of the skilled agent was to have a buyer list and really work those local buyers to try and sell a property. But of course, that doesn't apply anymore, because buyers can find you through digital channels. And as long as you are there to actually engage with them 24/7 as we do through the phone, web chat and various other channels, then you can actually secure that buyer a viewing slot, which you wouldn't have been able to do pre the kind of internet, or certainly pre-Rightmove days in the UK. So I think the digital space has changed fundamentally that relationship between agents and buyers. Not quite so much sellers, but absolutely with buyers.
Could we go back a little bit to local expertise versus the national brand again, and ask you, Leanne, could you further elaborate on how to deliver this sense of personal experience and versus the national brand? Are there any difficulties, or is this only a good thing?
Well, of course, I'm going to say it's a good thing, right? It's what I do for a living. But we certainly find that real estate agents are great at listing and selling property. And if they can leave everything else to their brand to take care of, the consistency, the marketing, the technology, all of that sort of thing, it means that they're letting experts in that space do the work, which is better for everybody in the long run. And as Doug said, it's incredibly important for agents to be part of the community, and it's even more so. We're seeing the really successful agents these days are embedded in their local communities, and it's not enough just to sponsor the local soccer team or football team, I should say. It's about actually participating. It's about being there, being trusted advisors and being part of everything that's going on in that local community. And agents that are aligned with a national brand have got more time on their hands to do the things that really matter in their business and their community, because they've got people like all of us on the screen looking after everything else for them.
Could you, as a panel, discuss the differences between the two markets where you work? I mean, are there any major differences that you can learn from Australia versus the UK?
I think I could pick up Nick's point that our territories are very, very small. And we've not seen a huge change in geographic spread of a territory over the last few years. One of my colleagues actually recently checked, and we do about 80% of our transactions within a mile and a half of the physical office space still. Now, there is some growth at the fringes, but in the UK, where we're very densely packed and people's moves do tend to be very, very local. The other interesting thing that we're seeing at the moment, actually, I would disagree with Nick slightly on another point, that whilst the digital experience has made it easier for buyers, a lot of our business is about nurturing the buyers. People spend such a long time thinking about property transactions now. Some people will tell you it's from the point they've moved into a new house, they start thinking about their next house. So actually, a lot of our buyers are obtained from nurturing those people in the community, understanding their needs as they develop over time, and finding them literally the next move before they've started thinking about it.
Yeah. No,
so are you finding people are moving further away now due to COVID, or they're still only moving very close?
There are some big moves out of places like London. We've seen that shifted the market hugely in places like Bath, where I live, which is an hour and a half by train outside of London. Nobody locally can get a look into the property market because everyone's coming out of London with big London money. That's even moving into the villages. It's in the small town Cainton, where our head office is based. But that's a bit of a one-time experience. Actually, within those communities, there isn't the same level of growth. It's mostly people coming out of London, we're finding.
Yeah, interesting.
Could you also, you have a lot to say about the market as it is right now. If we look into the future, like 10 years from now, where do you think we are in terms of mainly what digital will do to this the development?
Well, I don't know, 10 years is a long way out. I think one thing we've learned from lockdown and COVID is the fact that viewers and sellers are both willing to engage in remote viewings and video tours and various things like that. So I think people will always prefer and want, of course, to see a house physically before they actually make the move to buy it. But in terms of filtering down, both from the agent's point of view, interested buyers, and from the buyer's point of view, properties that they're interested in, is a massive time saving for everybody. to just have a quick look at a property through a video tour. And coming back to Nick's point, you don't want to lose the relationship with your buyers there. So hosting those video tours actually one-to-one, or you can do one-to-many, is still important for the agent to do, to be present in that experience. But nevertheless, it's a huge time saving for everyone. So I think people recognise that and the benefits of it.
I actually had someone say to me that they think that our kids, like the generation of our kids, will expect the properties that suit them to find them.
Yeah.
So, you know, how we retargeted on everything that we do on digital, they're sort of talking about the fact that people will just expect that the properties are going to pop into their feed or pop up in front of them rather than them actively being engaged in the search. And I thought that was a really fascinating conversation.
No, that is fascinating. And actually, I think had the Cambridge Analytica issue not raised its head, then, you know, the likes of Facebook and Google and others would know more about us as individuals. But I think that's going through a bumpy patch at the moment. So how that plays out over the next 10 years or so remains to be seen.
Yeah, true.
And I certainly think in the digital space, I mean, if we take it back a step in regards to not the logistics of actually selling properties, but also the agents themselves. I think one of the things that we've seen certainly in Australia is the rise of the agent or the super agent. So I think certainly the digital space, more so social media, will give agents individually a greater platform to be able to broadcast their message to the public. And I think what we'll start to see is it's not who they know, it's who knows them. And I think social media gives them that wonderful platform to be able to, first and foremost, educate the public with a little sprinkling of promotion in there as well, of course.
And I think, Doug, it's an interesting point because we'll probably go right around the loop and back to square one because, you know, how do you as a small independent get cut through the noise of all of the other independents sending out the same messages and using the same channels? And it goes back to, well, actually, if you've got a big national brand, as Leanne was talking about before, that can take care of that consistent marketing to allow those local agents the time and space to really connect with their local audience, then that's always going to be the thing that works the best. So it'd be interesting to see if everyone moves towards this kind of, it's all about me as an agent and this is my social media, this is what I've got to tell you, and I'm on LinkedIn giving you advisory messages and whatever else it might be. It just becomes noise and it gets lost.
Could you all, can I ask you to sum up, to give us each one key takeaway that, you know, our audience can use and remember in terms of this tension we're discussing between local expertise and national brand?
Well, I think certainly if you're looking, if you are a local agent and you feel like you need to be part of a brand because of all the benefits that it brings you, then you really need to make sure that the brand that you choose to be with aligns with your values and your direction, because there's lots of different brands out there. So it's really important to make sure you're aligning with someone who is like you, that you feel, it feels like home to you.
Yeah. And for us, it's always been about, you know, if you want to start your own business in agency, then we always say franchising is the best way to go because we're a franchisor, of course. But the reason being is we take care of all of the business noise and all of the distractions to allow our franchisees time to connect and nurture with their prospects, whether that's a buyer or a seller, because that's where they earn the cash. That's where they have the skills to add value, and they don't need to be worrying about marketing campaigns, collateral design, website design, technology, telephony support. They don't need to worry about that. But if you're an independent, you do. And you have less time, therefore, to speak with your prospects. So that's, for us, the key thing that we focus on.
And Douglas, what would be your main key takeaway from this?
Well, I'll actually go into bat for some of the independents as well, actually, because obviously, you know, we're a large real estate group ourselves, but, you know, obviously different horses for different courses or different strokes for different folks. And I think at the end of the day, it's about what suits you best. As Nick and Leanne have just alluded to, you know, if you want I suppose the reassurance of a national brand, it will give you that gravitas. But you may want to do your own thing. You may want to be unique. And one of the things about national brands is that they don't necessarily always give you that same level of autonomy or flexibility. So I think it's all about balance and what works for who, really, because one size genuinely doesn't fit all.
No, I'd agree with that.
I think localness gives you authenticity, but brands give you a credibility, and it is a blend of those two things.
Agreed.
I really want to thank you guys for this very interesting discussion, and I'm sure that you could continue for hours, but unfortunately I have to stop you right there. And thank you so much for joining me in the studio today.